Hey guys, I'm Krista, and this is my big sister Stacey.
And this is Sister Social Call. Well, good morning, Sissy.
Good morning, sis. How's it going?
Great. How are you this morning?
I'm feeling a bit frantic this morning, but I just have lots of things on the go so far. So I'm like trying to get a bunch of stuff done and then get to the farm at some point in time today. So it's just feeling a bit frantic. How about you?
I'm great. I am so excited about our show today and excited to introduce our listeners to one of my absolute lady heroes, Zena. I'm going to start with her bio and then we'll get into it.
Hey.
Zena is truly an outstanding Canadian financial planning leader. She is a chartered financial planner and owner of Astra Financial in Regina. She is the author of the book, The Heart of Your Money, A Woman's Guide, How to Create Your Family Financial Value System and Take Control of Your Money, and the host of not one, but two podcasts. Their names are The Heart of Your Money and For the Love of Kindness. Zena has developed educational tools, including Re-Inspirement, a workbook for planning a financially sound retirement. For our listeners, I will include all those links in our show notes. She has been mine and Sean's financial planner for at least 10 years. It's probably closer to 15. She has given us a path to a sound retirement. And even though Sean and I have been working closely with Zena, Chrissy and I have known Zena for much longer, for almost 30, because we were camp kids. We went to Camp Tawasi and we also grew up at the Y. Zena is a deeply caring and has been a cheerleader for so many of my life's twists and turns. She embodies women supporting women, and I deeply admire her for her grace and her humility. You are one of my most dear friends, close confidants, and I'm so grateful to have you beside me in this journey. Thank you so much for joining us today on Sister Social Call.
That's quite the introduction. Thank you, guys. When you started your podcast, I was like, thank God, because we live in different areas. And I'm like, now I can at least sit in your kitchen and be a part of this conversation. So I'm so glad you guys started this up.
Well, we are just so happy to have you here. When you said you felt like you're in the cool kids club, I don't know. It feels opposite. I feel like we are with you, hanging out with you on our podcast. But
oh my gosh, it's my best commute, right? 20 minutes to work. I get to put on and have a little bit of my coffee time in the car with you too. So thanks. It's pretty good. I can't believe, has it been 30 years? Yeah, never mind. I just did the math. I know exactly how old I am.
yes.
Wow.
That's a while ago. The old Y days, camp days. I still feel like I'm the same age as I was then.
Right? I know. I had a girlfriend and I love it. And she's like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, who's this woman? And she goes, because I'm really just 11 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, me too.
I feel the same. Okay, Zena, well, we want to dig into a couple topics with you today. So since Stacey and I are both in our 40s, the first topic we want to talk about is financial planning in your 40s and beyond. And the second topic, if we have time, is to talk about scarcity mindset. We talked about the scarcity mindset in episode 14, and we both struggle with it, but are trying to challenge it. We thought you may have some insights for us. Would you like to start with an overview of financial planning in your 40s and beyond?
Yeah, well, there's lots to unpack there, but this is definitely the decade that you might start to feel a little bit like a grown-up. I know that we're still 17, but then you have those moments where you start to, realize that maybe we're getting a little bit older, maybe just a smidgen. But people are mentioning here and there a little bit about wills or planning for retirement. And this is the time when shit starts to get real. You're like, oh my God, I'm an adult. Right? It's definitely you start to realize like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing these things that adults are doing. And I think that's when it hit the most for me. What about you guys? Like 40 was, there's the whole aging piece, but then there's the like, oh my God, I'm an adult.
I have those moments, like I've had them probably for like the last 20 years since my 20s, where there's like these moments that pop up where it's like, oh my God, I'm not just in high school anymore. Like I got to start making like these decisions or big life decisions or whatever. But I would say in my 40s, I feel the pressure more of being, and I think it's interesting because I feel the pressure of feeling like, I need to save, I need to retire. It's like this pressure from society that I feel like I need to do this. It's like, I need to do it. But at the same time, It's like, oh my gosh, I should be retiring in 25 years if all goes well.
Stacey, did you have that feeling? Like, well, I've known you for so long and we've talked about money lots. And so you've always been a planner. So I don't know what was for you.
I think that for me, it was actually when I became Granny and Grandpa's full on into the estate planning for them. That's when I think the shit got real for me. This is what we have to do as we get older, and to make sure that people are prepared. We don't have kids, so whoever I leave this responsibility to, I want it to be the least amount of burden as possible, because it is a big job. So I think in my 30s, when I had to take on Granny and Grandpa's estate, that was probably my aha moment. But now in my 40s, I think I feel more stabilized, maybe, in how the planning is coming together. But I can certainly see how it becomes a decade of like it's crazy to think that I am 15 years already into a career, and that possibly 10, but certainly not. I won't be retiring in 10, but those words are thrown around lots now at being 15 years into a career in the public service. 25 years is not that far.
Yeah, and we start to think about our future self, and I think that's the big key now, is that there's this realization of like, okay, I've got my present self that I need to take care of, and we're in the hustle. And Krista, you're busy, you're doing things, and then you feel the pressure. It's because it's like day-to-day life, and then there's also now this pressure for future self, and that realization, I think, starts to get real in our 40s for some people. And this is the time also where lifestyle inflation starts to become real. And so what I mean by that is keeping up with the Joneses, or we're making just a little bit more money now in our career, or, because we've had a career for 15 years, or you might be just where you're starting to feel a little bit stable. And then it's the things that you think you see other people doing in their 40s without knowing the behind the scenes. And I think sometimes I see that happen. So lifestyle starts to creep up, trying to keep up with things, meaning like, we're both working and we've been in this position for a while, and everyone on our block is driving this brand new vehicle or upgrades every 2 or 3 years. Like, what's wrong with us? And I think that's a common piece I see with women in their 40s. Like, so the questions I get, are we the norm? And or what's wrong with us? Like, why do they have all these things down the block and all our friends in their 40s? Like, what are we doing wrong? And those are the two pieces of pressure I think we put on ourselves.
Like the comparison of where you're at with the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
I do think there's a little bit of that for sure. I don't think I necessarily feel so much of that. I've always just kind of marched the beat of my own drum, but I think it's like that pressure of like, you need to retire one day. It's like, why do we have that stuck in our head? Like, why is that a thing? Like, I'm curious about that.
On a side note, retirement is only really less than 100 years old. This is a brand new concept that only really started in the early 1900s, of this idea of retirement. Pension plans in the 70s. I'm a child of the 70s, right? And they were just starting pension plans, defined benefit pensions in the 70s. And so this is a new concept. And I feel like we got a little bit bamboozled with marketing. Freedom 55. Right? That was a thing. Like, we should all be retired by 55 if you do the correct saving. It's so much more complicated, because if you love what you do, right? Why do we have to have this number? Anyway, that's a whole other tangent there, that idea. But I think that this is the time where we do need to have some guardrails in there and some checklists, because it's too easy without them to feel overwhelmed and scarcity mindset or comparison mindset, or imagine every emotion out there that might be a little bit negative of pressure. Where should we be at? Are we there? And so this is the time, I think, really, that we can kind of take a breath. There's also, this idea of, we talk about self-care right now is a huge thing. You can't not look somewhere and read about self-care, but financial self-care, I think, is a big movement happening right now in our 40s that we need to recognize.
What does financial self-care look like, Zena? Is it actually assessing like where you're at?
It's everything. So it's even just talking about money like we are here today. Financial self-care is also recognizing the emotions, right? Where did we come from? And so that scarcity mindset that you guys talk about is that we all have kind of those first money memories. We all have those imprints and blueprints of how we think about money. And I think financial self-care is, okay, let's map out, okay, there's those emotions going on, but how do I move forward in a positive way? And that can be actually, for some people, that's actually opening the freaking bills that come in the mail, because that overwhelm, you feel like you've been sucker punched. And for me, it's still that darn brown CRA letter that comes. And I know this is like many, many, many years ago, but it's like, oh my God, they're telling me I owe taxes, right? And I've been reassessed and now I owe taxes. And it's that dread of that envelope. And now you don't even get the envelopes. But if I see a brown envelope, it's like trauma hits. I'm like, and so it's dealing with all those things. And so self-care might be just opening up the friggin' bills and having a breath and trying to stay positive. It might be doing your monthly cash flow or budget, right? Of seeing where you're at, checking your bank statement. Financial self-care could be booking a conversation with your partner. Okay, are we on track? Aren't we? Everything and anything that moves you in a positive direction.
You mentioned the word guardrail. Since the majority of our listeners are women, would you have any specific thoughts or recommendations for guardrails for women?
Yeah, we're all going to know somebody who has gone through a marital breakdown or a relationship breakdown, and it can be quite financially crippling. And I'm not planning for the demise of any relationship. It's more of also emotional health as well. But I think protecting independence, for women in our phase, protecting your finances, for numerous reasons. Maybe it's easy because we're busy. I just, in the Globe Mail, just did this article and it was pretty much, we're the nurturers taking care of everything. And we might be busy caregiving either our adult children, our adult parents, or even just running the household, that sometimes we give up the task of doing the finances. That's fair because we all split activities in a relationship or in running a house, right? Each has their own gift and then they participate and bring to the relationship that, but it's common for women to step back and let the finances, although it's, side note, I surround myself with some pretty strong darn women. So this isn't everybody I know, but there is a general norm there where women will give up the finances. And this is the time to be involved. One partner might do the actual bill paying for the month. That's a transactional, operational thing that has to happen. It's like running a business, right? In our house, we still have to make sure all the bills are paid. Maybe one person does that, but you still need to check in and know the ins and outs of the entire family money piece. And so that's part of protecting the independence, just knowing it. And the other piece is it's okay to have your own bank account. It doesn't mean you're planning for the demise of a breakup. It just means that you've got your own savings account. You've got your own financial identity, right? You've got a credit card that has been in your own name. You've got your own money background for credit checks. It's just smart.
I kind of see that in both sides. Obviously I'm a hairstylist, and so I hear a lot of what happens in people's lives, especially in the realm of separation and divorce and stuff like that. And it's shocking to me how many people don't have financial independence, like at my age, because I just assume that people of my generation, just everybody kind of knew what was happening and financially, and everybody kind of had their own money. But also, like, when I was married, we had our own money. We had our own bank accounts, but we had one joint account where we would put money into it. And I was definitely the breadwinner in the relationship, but I absolutely refused to amalgamate everything. And I just kind of assumed everybody else was like that until we're starting to go through divorces and things, and people are talking more. It's like some of my friends had no idea the debt their life was in. They didn't know there's things that they had no idea because they just, well, that's their role in the relationship. Like you said, you look after everything else, that's their role. And then consequently, when the shit hits the fan, it really, truly does. And that's a hard lesson to learn at 40, 45 years old in your life. That is like, oh my gosh, the wool was pulled over my eyes for the last 20 years.
Yeah. And I just want to put out there, and it's the same quote I gave the reporter, was that this isn't about lack of intelligence. This is about lack of exposure, because we can all handle it, and women can most definitely have the know how to. It's just that we delegate and then it just kind of becomes a runaway and then we don't pay attention. So it's just about exposure, not intelligence. That's the super important piece. A common thing that I've heard from women is, well, I'm just not good with money. Well, unpacking that one, that's kind of a negative statement that I'd love to flip around. It just means you haven't had enough exposure to it. And so flipping that is empowering as well. There's a couple of things. So in our 40s, a couple of the big checklists that I think is really important is I can be a Debbie Downer. And one of them is you need to have a will and power of attorney for if something happens to you guys, because that's also the one that I see that gets pushed off because it's a really hard topic to talk about. And most of the time, and in Stacey, I know you going through with your grandma is that for some of us, it's not a hard topic. It's just a matter of fact of this is what you do. But for other people, it becomes a really emotional. And that one's a big barrier of women in their 40s or families, and they don't have a will or power of attorney. So that one's big. Another one is building a cash savings reserve, right? Having something that's liquid outside of their work pensions or outside of RSPs, something that is, whether it's a tax-free savings investment. I have comments about how I like to use those. Those are more of like I love for retirement long term, but they also serve a purpose of if you know what hits the fan in your life and you have to access some money. And I love having some cash savings, right? Knowing what your sweet spot is and how much you like to have in the bank. I don't know, like when I was 21 or 22, $500 in the bank for savings was like super goal worthy. As we get older, we need just a little bit more cushion. So I think cash savings for emergencies, and then making sure that you're saving for your future self. And those are the important basic pieces that kind of need to be identified in your 40s.
So I have a quick little question about this. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who has never spoke to a financial advisor, spoke to their bank about any investments, or like in their 40s? This is not something they've even ever done. Where's the starting point for somebody at that point? Because I would say that I communicate with people that would not have ever started this process ever in their life.
Yeah.
And I think people sometimes maybe feel that it's too late. So,
and the other common one is, well, I don't have $1 million. Why would I go to a financial advisor, right? Well, we all start somewhere, and that's the time you need to speak to someone. So the first is just knowing your ins and outs. Take inventory, right? What's coming in and what's going out. Just have that knowledge. And that's part of when I talked about the financial self-care, that's financial self-care right there. Just tracking and saying, okay, what do I got going in? What do I got going out? What are my expenses? What are my fixed expenses that have to be paid no matter what? We have to have something to quantify and qualify where we stand, because otherwise it's all stories in our head. And that's when we come up with stories of, I'll never get there. I'll never have enough. Or now on the flip side, I don't see too much of this is that I got enough, no worries. But without knowing, you can't actually make those stories accurate. So that's the first place. I have a second one.
Yeah, do tell. We want to hear everything you have to tell us.
Well, then the next thing is, so once you've done your inventory and you know what's in and out, then the next step, and this one's a little bit harder, is to pull up your bank statement and go through all the transactions for the last 3 months. And what is your body reaction? Right?
Okay.
So you've got to, you know what all your mortgage payments are, if you have a car loan, what that has to be, what your paycheck is. Okay. And then I can see where the rest of my money is going. And then just go through your online banking and scroll down, and where are all the ins and outs that are making you kind of that, feeling of just the pit in your stomach again. And for me, it was takeout. I think I have an app on my phone, DoorDash. And it skipped the dishes. And I was going through this because I practice this probably about once a year just to go through it. And that's when I saw all the takeout. And I was like, this does not feel good. This does not feel right with me. This does not align with how I want my money to be spent. And that's just one example. And so if you go through that, and it's okay if you don't have any of those negative reactions with spending, because sometimes there's no wiggle room for poor spending. It's literally just going to everything that needs to be going. And so there's no right or wrong answer. It's just doing that so that you have an awareness, get you a little closer to your money.
I remember doing that not quite a few years ago, I think. When I was married, I'm pretty sure I remember doing that. And a lot of it was spent on going to the local bar and then buying booze. And it was like astounding. I was going like 3 times a week, and it's like, holy, like I don't have money to spend on that. I've only done that once in my life. I'm glad that you said that. I'm like, oh, I should do that and see. But I remember doing that, and it never even dawned on me until I looked at it. And then it was just such a reality. Like, this is crazy. You don't have the money to be spending here 3 days a week and then grabbing a box of wine. That was a bit of an eye opener for sure then. And yeah, I should do that again. Not that I have any extra to be spending frivolously at this point in my life, but check it out.
It's just knowing that your money's going where you want it to go. So the other one is the big one for me is like every single streaming platform. I'm like, seriously, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Netflix. This is, like you name it, like every platform. And I'm like, there's not enough hours in a day for me to log in and watch all of this crap. So yeah, and it's little things because we're going to have inflation coming up. Things are going to cost a lot more going forward, and that's not new. We saw that leap in 2022. We saw inflation just spike. Inflation meaning the cost of goods and services, and so really, it's literally walking out of the grocery store used to be 3 bags of food is now only maybe 1.5 bags of food for the same price, and you're like, what the heck? And so because that's going to it doesn't matter how much money you make. We need to have a little bit of knowledge to know what's coming in, what's going out, and putting our money in the right place, because it's just going to get more and more expensive.
That is fascinating to me. I just never thought that it could really get any worse, but here we are.
Yeah, well, I remember buying a bag of chips and a Coke, a bottle of Coke for 50 cents. And so, it's just, we're going to look back and you're going to start to realize it just gets more and more expensive. And that's part of the saving for retirement that we have to do, because this new idea of retirement in the last 100 years, retirement's going to be 20, 30 years. And there'll be different variations of what that looks like. It could be part-time work until 70 years. There's nothing saying at what age that starts, but it's going to, we're living longer. He's 95. And so we need our money to last that long, because things are just going to get more and more expensive.
I just wanted to ask a quick little question. This dawned on me this morning, and I thought this will be a great place to ask. So I've had 2 not great experiences with financial planners. One was when I first started hair school, and there was a gentleman who was a client there, and he right away hopped on me because I needed to have disability. I just started out doing hair. I was making nothing. I was so poor. I've had nothing. And so him and his buddy sit down with me and they say, okay, here's a plan. This is what you need, $250 a month. Dude, I didn't even have $5 extra a month. And so he gave me all the information. I just thought, no, I'm not doing this. It's like, I can't even afford that. I can't even afford to eat right now, let alone pay this guy. Anyway, so I went back to him and I said, I can't afford this. I'm sorry. I'm not interested. I can't afford it. Well, then his tune changed. And then right away, he came back to me with one that was like $60. And instantly I was repulsed by that. So I was like, no, I want nothing to do with you. I can't trust you from our very first interaction. You don't have my best interests in your mind. So that was number one. And I was very not pleased with that. And then the second is that my ex-husband and I had our investments in with a friend of ours. When we split, I had my own investments and he had his own. And then she communicated with me a little bit. And then I was trying to figure out some stuff and completely just ghosted me. And she screwed up something on my file and I tried to get a hold of her and she completely ghosted me. And so at that moment, I removed everything and just went to my bank. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't do something different, but I just want to know how would you say for somebody that's maybe hasn't invested or who is wanting to do some investing or retirement savings or just savings in general, how would they decide whether to go through their bank or go through someone such as yourself?
Yeah. So thank you for bringing this up, because it's a super important relationship, right? And it sounds like you kind of got let down, and this is somebody that you want that needs to be your advocate.
100%.
Right. And even your cheerleader, but also your teacher of money. And so this is a very, very important relationship. Certified financial planner is a designation that it takes years and there has to be experience. There's a lot of exams in there. And then there's also affiliations of code of ethics and such. And so what that does is it means that there's a vast knowledge there of, rather than just selling you a product, it's about learning the entire picture, your entire financial picture. And it's about educating you and supporting you to get to where you want to and offering all those other tools. And so first thing I'd say is that if anybody's going to sit down with somebody, you need to ask their qualifications, right? What is their expertise? The next piece in there is, I'll just throw in, is compensation. because you nailed it when you talk about, trying to give you a product at this much each month. And then all of a sudden you realize, well, there is another one that's better. Well, if someone can explain how they're compensated easily and you know that, then you might see, is there a conflict of interest, right? And so then it's, how is a certified financial planner / advisor compensated? And is it transparent? And what do you benefit out of these recommendations? And so you kind of missed the boat on a few things there. It sounds like you didn't have the full picture, wasn't trying to help and educate you with cash flow and build you up and have a big picture conversation. And then also it was, show me the transparency. Is this in my best interest or not? And what are the alternatives? And so those are the big pieces. Because it's a relationship for many years, as Stacey and I have known each other for so long and worked together for so long, this is about an intimate relationship, because quite often we don't talk about money in depth with family members. We don't talk about it with best friends. I don't know the last time that you sat down and had a glass of wine with your close friends and said, how are you financially? Are you on track, right? Have you maxed out this? And how's your cash flow, ins and outs? That is not what we're talking about within our circle. And so it is a very safe place full of a whole bunch of emotion, because money's full of emotion. And it's a long-term relationship. Everything we talk about in our four walls in the office or with clients, it stays there because it's a safe place. And so a lot of people don't have a safe place to talk about money. So this relationship is important, Kristen. It's about interviewing people, talking to them, finding out what is your expertise in, what is your experience, what is your education, and what is your specialty? Because specialty of someone starting out, especially being kind of an entrepreneur, right? You're self-employed, you're growing your business. Is that your specialty to help grow with me and help teach me the things that I know? Or is your specialty in, I only work with real estate agents, or I only work with this specific group of people and they don't have the knowledge that they can help you with? So finding their specialty in there as well is super important. And then another one that sometimes gets missed is asking for a list of referrals.
Oh, that's a good one for sure.
Oh, yeah. Let me talk to someone that works with you. And if they already have names and are giving you the phone number there in that moment as they speak to you, sometimes that gives me a little bit of a flag, because the first thing I want to do is say, you bet. Let me call them and ask them if I can give permission for me to give their name to speak to you, because there's confidentiality, right? And I want to protect. And so it's a tight circle that we have. We want to make sure that they feel safe and protected as well. And so you want to get approval, and then you want to talk to them. Hey, what's the service like? Do you feel like it's in your best interest? Or tell me about your experience with them. And so those are a few things, just a few things that are really important. It's going to take a little while, because you're going to want to sit down and talk to people, because most often you'll have a gut reaction. You're going to go through the list of questions that you need to ask, but you also need to do a gut reaction and say, is this someone I feel safe with?
Great advice. I think that will go a long way, honestly. So the more information that we can put out there to people that are in our friend circle, in our family circles, in our age groups, and peers, the better off everybody will be.
I know you listened to episode 14 when Chrissy and I opened up about our scarcity mindsets. Does scarcity mindset ever creep into your world still? And how are you challenged? And I thought you would probably have some tips on how we can challenge it too in our lives.
Oh my gosh, I have scarcity all the time. And there's triggers, right? And so I have found that I still have to do like a little mantra, right? And so there's a check yourself before you wreck yourself moment whenever those kind of thoughts and scarcity starts to slip in. Your guys' story, like that's we all have a story, and it gets kind of emotional, right? And so where does our scarcity emotion come from? Sometimes it's our first money memory. Sometimes it's also just through habit, right? And not changing the lever all through our life. And so then you get stuck in there without paying attention. And for me, and I know I've shared this in the past, but it was just my mom and I starting out until my stepdad came into the picture. And before then we were pretty poor and had to shop at the Salvation Army. And I remember exactly which one it was too. Interestingly, down on Cathedral, there's a meat shop there. I don't know if it's open anymore, but it used to be the Salvation Army years ago, across from Connaught School around there. And so, I remember starting kindergartening and having to shop for used clothes. And I remember in one of the places we rented, for whatever reason, I don't know if the power went out or I feel like maybe a bill didn't get paid, but something worked in the kitchen. And so the stove was open to stay warm. So we got to hang out and sleep down there. And so I never went hungry. And I didn't know we didn't have anything until probably that time shopping and having to buy used shoes that didn't fit and they kind of smelled. And so doing this exercise has really pinpointed about why I have so many shoes. I can't even tell you how many shoes I have. I don't even wear them. I've got drawers full at the office in a storage closet, and I've got shoes there. I've got shoes at home, everywhere. And so what I put together finally over years, and it still creeps in, is that when I go shoe shopping, I actually have to stop myself because I'm like, holy crap, this is scarcity mode. What is going on? I do not need any more shoes. So I don't think it matters how much a person makes. I don't think it matters how much money they have in the bank account. This is going to be with us for the rest of our lives if we are wired for scarcity mindset. And, we don't win at money. It's really just trying to use our money well. And so there's deep breaths and I'll be like, you are enough. You have enough. Where is this really coming from? And I think that sometimes it's just sitting in that for a minute. Check yourself before you wreck yourself and then kind of swim out of it. I have a pretty great relationship. Of course, I'm a big TMI in my family, like too much information all the time. And so I guess, an over communicator. I didn't think I was because anyway. And so Ian can tell when I'm in scarcity mode and he looks at me and he's like, hun, like you're in scarcity mode. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, listen to yourself. He's like, we're okay. And he'll take my hand and be like, we're fine. And I'm like, okay, right. And usually gets triggered, if it's a bunch of bills come in at the same time or that brown letter comes from CRA, right? It could just be the notice of assessment, but I'm like panicking, freaking out. And so I think it's just about recognizing it. And then what are some tools you can do to help with it? And it's mindset. It's a story, a mantra, big breath. I'm like, I am enough. I have enough. What is going on? And also sharing and communicating. And so having a safe space. So if you have a partner, it's about talking about it with your partner because that's a huge story and burden to carry all by yourself. And you should be a team. And if it's not your partner, maybe there's a family member or somebody that you can call. Like I know my oldest daughter will call me and she's recognized because she knows. She's like, okay, I'm in scarcity mode. Oh, hi, how you doing? Okay, well, tell me about that, right? And so I think those are some key things that we can't ignore because it's gonna creep up on most of us.
It sure does all the time. But it is a work in progress always.
Having a plan helps, I know, Stacey, we work on this a little bit, is that if you can have some proof, right, in the pudding, like, okay, show me again, or here's what we've mapped out. And I know that it's not the Holy Grail or the Bible, like life changes, life's fluid, but at least knowing within reason, like, hey, like this is what it looks like and mapping it out, that gives a lot of people confidence in it as well. And there's some control in that.
Yeah. In the episode, it kind of talked about how I know our big picture looks stable and that we're fully funded for retirement till we're 95, which is a beautiful thing to know at this age. I want to go buy a pair of jeans, but I'm like, but should I? What if something comes up? I have had this on my wish list for a very long time that I need. And it's still, there's that scarcity mindset creeps in going like, maybe it's just whether I'm deserving. I don't know. It's just really fascinating at this time going like, why is it still creeping? Why do I think that I shouldn't go buy them?
Does it stay long? Does it linger? Does that feeling and story kind of stay with you for a full day, or is it just a fleeting moment?
I don't feel like it's fleeting because I think about it quite often because it's like it's on the list, right? I need to wait till I have money. Or then when I have a little bit extra money, it's like, but
is it because it's hard to part with that? Because like, so you've got the money, you've earmarked it for the jeans, but now that it's in there and you want to buy the jeans, you're like, oh, but now I don't want to part with this because what if?
Yeah, there is the what if.
So are you a big conversation in your head person? I only learned recently that not everybody has this conversation I've got going on in my head nonstop. Are you a conversation in your head person?
Yes.
Yeah. So is there a statement that you can flip that and, you go in the bank, I'm guessing you see that, okay, I've got the amount, I'm going to go buy these jeans, and you've got your perimeter of whatever, right? You've saved so you can go spend that money. And is there a statement or something that you can, like a little mini mantra that you can put in your head and then send it. Okay, I'm getting really far out there, people. I am really a spreadsheet person. I'm not all, energy fields and such. But is there a way then to send a little bit of love to the genes and be like, wow, this is fantastic. I am so grateful and I am so excited. I have saved up the money. Good job, Stacey. And I'm so excited to go get these jeans.
I'm going to do that today, and I'm going to have no reservation.
Try it and to let me know how it goes, because I know it's really far out there. You guys should meet my mom. She's like, hence my first name. My mom is wild. I really am about the fundamental proven finance side of things. But then there's a little bit of ooby gooby out there with my mom. But that one has worked really well for me. And it's like a forced gratitude. Yeah.
I'll text you later, let you know how it goes.
Yeah, because you've done all the work, you've planned for it, you've saved for it, and then it's supposed to be guilt-free. That's the beauty of having a cash flow system where you've put in to the bucket and you've got this money that is like, that's for you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your financial wisdom with us, Zena. But let's change the topic to something really fun. You and Stacey are going to adult camp at the end of the month. And actually, Camp Tawasi and the YMCA of Regina is where we first met you. Stacey was like, what are your first memories of Zena? And I honestly don't have a specific memory. I just remember you being around camp and just that was part of the crew. I can get like a visual of everybody kind of on, main field and waiting to play capture the flag, and just your presence is always like, that's what I totally remember. A specific memory.
That's the beauty of small, camp and the Y is that you see everybody and you know everybody. And yeah, camp was, well, would I let my kid go to camp right now? Probably not. Knowing the things that I know at camp, thank God, thank God we grew up to be, a good part of society after running around loose all summers in the valley. I can't imagine. I mean, my first time going to the bar, I'm sure it was 15 at the Country Squire in Fort Capel.
For sure.
And so there's some not great memories, like where you're just like, oh, I'd rather just not remember, all the goofy, silly, stupid things. And then there's just, my biggest memory of camp, I think it is simplicity. If I were to think of a word, it's about simplicity of, we didn't have phones. We were away from the city. And so you went into your own little bubble at camp for the summer. And so I remember, because we didn't even watch TV. So like the news, like the world could be ending and we wouldn't know because we were running around camp doing our own thing. It was wonderful. It was bliss. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was so awesome. Stacey and I often attribute a lot of things in our life to the experiences we had at camp and the why and the people that we were surrounded by and the lessons that we learned and just evolving as our own people. Like that's camp and the why really fostered that, like allowed you to just be you and you were accepted for who you were and who authentically, and the people. Yeah, it was such a magical place. And we find it shows up lots in our life. We always say, if it wasn't for camp, we didn't learn a lot of the things that we learned from our family, from our parents. A lot of things we learned were through the why, through camp, through leaders, through CIT, all that stuff. So does it show up for you in your life at all? Do you find at this point in time, like, do you have those moments where you're like, camp taught me that?
Almost, I think, I don't think I think about camp daily, but it must be a lot. And my closest friends and Stacey, like you, like we have this history of just, and my best friend I've known since I was 13. We worked at camp together. I might not be best friends with everyone else, but we all know each other and there's this memory and respect. I think we all grew up together. And what a little bit more wholesome than, let's say, growing up at the 7-Eleven on the corner of Albert smoking cigarettes in grade 9, like I did with, like I remember there was this one, maybe it was grade 8. No, anyway, just knowing the different circles of where kids can land and who they surround themselves with. And I'm like, geez, it was the most wholesome influence. And there is so much leadership skills and everything I've learned. And I've tried to pass down to my kids and, taking them to teach them how to canoe, how to kayak and outdoor things. And so there's a lot of it is around the outdoorness piece, but I think it's that overlapping simplicity, and it goes in, and leadership, and it just oozes into everyday life now. I wouldn't be who I am without the why and camp. 100.
Absolutely. We feel very much the same.
Yeah. Could have gone a lot of different ways, paths in life.
Absolutely.
And thank goodness this one was, the why kept us busy on the straight and narrow. And then part of it too is that a lot of us hung out at the Y on Saturdays. We were dropped off as kids back in the day when you could just drop your kid off in the morning, who was like probably 8 or 9. And I remember, I think I was given $2, and that $2 would buy you a hot dog and fries for the day. And then your parents would pick you up at 5 p.m. at the end of the day, and you just ran around the building alone without a parent, unchaperoned. Oh my God.
The salty fries. I forgot about those. They'd come in those
Yeah,
white bags that would be all greasy because your fries, oh, so good.
so good. And milkshakes from there. Yeah.
So good. So good.
And I think we all looked out for each other. There was this, not literally, but there was this sense of something like, you could run to somebody, or you could be with, like, you could stop someone in the hall, or like you had something in common that made you part of this group, whether or not you were actually super close or not.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
And now we get to go to adult camp, and
yeah, that'll be great.
I know we could talk about like camp for hours and hours, and so I'm so happy that we get to spend 3 solid days together being campers again in a couple of weeks.
I was so excited to sign up for archery. I was like, oh my God, I haven't done archery since camp. I can't wait.
Oh my gosh, be careful when you pull that string back too far. It doesn't cross over your shoulder and give you that wicked bruise. I remember that happening often when I was young.
Yeah, me too.
I trust that Zena will know how to do this because she's been practicing biathlon. Did you know that, sis?
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's with a gun, not an art. I don't know how. Bow and arrow has been a long time.
I know, but I feel like your steadiness of your hands and arms will have really improved probably because of your biathlon training.
Well, maybe. And I know the other important part of this adult camp was we made sure that we had fob time, which at camp was like feet on bunk or flat on back. It was like, we're going to need a couple hours in between activities now.
I actually got an email yesterday to sign up for massages. I don't know if you saw it in your inbox, but I definitely did book a massage during our archery time. So I'm going to jam on archery and go for a massage.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Now that is a true adult camp.
Exactly. That's so awesome. I can't wait to hear about it when you guys are back.
Do you guys still sing or have songs that pop into your head from camp, like campfire songs? Do you still sometimes catch yourself singing something?
Totally. Yeah.
Me too.
When I was driving last week and thinking about adult camp, there's a campfire the one night. I wonder what song I can remember. And I could only remember the Oreo song.
Oh my gosh, I was just going to say the Oreo cookie song.
And then who else comes into mind is Marcus. Marcus singing a couple of songs at the campfire because he was really good and animated. He did awesome.
For sure. Yes, definitely.
And then I just kind of remember the one about sharks, and there were sharks, but it wasn't like baby
This whole weekend now I'm going to be like camp songs, right? Because I only know like a couple of choruses or a couple of lines, and then it's over and over again in my head.
Yeah, exactly. What was that shark song now? I'm thinking of like the baby shark song, but that's not it at all. It'll come to me. It's crazy how those things were such a part of our life for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden it's hard to remember them. But I'm sure if somebody started singing it, we'd be able to come back into it. Like it would just come back, like muscle memory.
I have the end of day. Day is done. Gone the sun.
Yeah.
From the hills to
Love
the skies.
that.
All is well. Safely rest.
Safely rest. Yes, so good. That gave me goosebumps a little bit.
Yeah, everyone would meet up at the dining hall at the end of day and at the end of activities. And so all campers and counselors, you'd all come. I think you'd come to the mess hall at the end of day. And it was sort of your farewell as a community for the evening and nighttime. And we'd all get together and sing it. And then everyone would go back to their cabin for bed. And it was the rituals and those little tiny habits that have just are so heartwarming. Yeah. And, looking back, they probably had no idea because we were just a whole bunch of wild banshees back then. But I'd be curious to see if our friends in psychology and such is that those little things work to calm kids down too, because every night you had this routine as a camper. Cause I was scamper camp when I was 6. My mom got sponsorship through the Y. So that's why there's also some more memories as well as that. So I was a sponsored kid because my mom couldn't afford it. And so I went to scamper camp at 6 and I was sponsored for a couple of years. And then after that, I didn't need to be because my stepdad was in the picture. And I remember being homesick and I remember being kind of scared as a camper, and I'm an only child too. So I wasn't used to a whole bunch of people either. And I remember being homesick at night, but it was those routines that got me through as a kid, as a camper. And then to have done it as a counselor as well and with our friends. And so there must be a psychologist. There's something to it about all these little routines that made campers probably feel better about knowing, okay, now we do this, now we do that. And you have all these habits. Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, so good. So good.
Okay, sis. Well, let's move into our pits and plans for pits. Nothing that I'm going to discuss this week on this episode. It was a pretty good week overall, but my peaks. I was in Prince George last weekend for a conference. I was there in my role as a volunteer with the Canadian Red Cross, providing emergency support services to my community. So learned a lot, got to meet a lot of people in my area, and that's always the benefit of conferences, is actually the networking and connections. And for many of our followers that follow us on Instagram, I asked a question. I was shocked to find a bidet in my bathroom. I was like, that is the first time it's ever happened that there's been a bidet in my hotel room. Anyway, so I asked the folks on Instagram if I should use it. And I will report back that I gave it a whirl. I tried it about 3 times, but I don't really get the purpose of a bidet because is it supposed to reduce toilet paper consumption? Because I still needed to use toilet paper to dry myself off. And so I really wasn't convinced that this is as awesome as many people seem to think that
I
it
have
is.
one at my house.
I know. Do you use it all the time?
Yes.
I didn't think that it was used anymore.
Yeah, I do use it. So
Okay.
I like it. But I still need to use toilet paper.
Yeah, it's not saving toilet paper.
But I always feel very clean down there.
Okay, good. Anyways, I used it. There's stuff going on. I think a peak is just seeing how you and Jay are rallying together at home. So I thank you. I appreciate you guys so much for what you guys are having to take on. And plans, I'm home for the weekend. This was my once a month weekend where I scheduled nothing. And I'm doing pretty good with sticking to that. I had mentioned that earlier in the year that I was going to schedule all these weekends and not commit to anything. So other than recording the podcast, I have no plans this weekend. I'm just going to get up to whatever my heart desires. It looks like it's going to be beach weather today and maybe Monday. So I'm going to finish doing some spring cleaning tasks. I said I would clean out my recycling bins on Instagram. So I'm going to hold true to that because those are gross. And so, yeah, I'm just going to enjoy the sunshine. How about you, sis? What do you got? How are your peaks, pits, and plans?
Well, I'll start with my pits. So there's a resident woodpecker that lives in my area, and he likes to show up in the springtime and the summer. And usually he bangs away on the power pole in my yard, but he's now started to bang away on the metal stack on my roof. So he legit has woke me up 3 days this week. As soon as the sun comes up, he's pecking away. And first time I thought that there might have been, because it sounded like it was coming from my gas fireplace. And at first I thought there was maybe a bird or something stuck in it. Because it was like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I eventually did go outside and there he was. And really, what can I do about it? Well, he's just got to move on from there at some point in time. So he's literally woke me up 3 times. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So that's hilarious. And then the very first night that the morning that he woke me up, actually in the middle of that night, Hex got stuck. I always put a sticky mouse trap out behind my furnace because there's a little hole there, and every once in a while I get a mouse that comes up. Tex has never gone back there because it's barricaded. Somehow he got himself back there at 3 a.m, got himself stuck to the sticky trap. So first he was stuck to the sticky trap, and then his paw was all sticky, so I had to get out of bed and actually get coconut oil and clean his paw off. So I was up, fully up, and then finally fall back asleep, and then the woodpecker at 5 or 6 in the morning. So that's not great. But minor. So yeah, peaks. Well, I'm super pumped to be able to be in the garden. It's so nice out finally. And I planted, this is insane, but I planted a bunch of perennials last year, loads of them. I bought a wholesale order and planted half of them here at my house and half at the farm, and they're all starting to come up. So I'm super pumped. Anyways, yeah. And then I guess another thing was that we do have a little bit of a family situation happening right now. And anyways, thankfully to my 12-week women's course, I've been able to like navigate through that. So I've been feeling like pretty good about that. I'm like, oh, thank God for that, taking that time, because it prepared me to deal with that hand right now. So I'm feeling really good about that. I'm like thankful for that and for taking the time for myself to take those 12 weeks. It's definitely given me some wonderful tools in my toolbox, and they are actively being used at this moment. So, and then my plans, I guess I'm just going to be off to the farm after this. Mark and I, we need a new house at the farm. That was kind of one of my things I said before I moved to the farm. I want a new house, but it doesn't even need to be new, but I just don't want to live in the trailer. And although this just a couple weeks ago, I did tell him, I was like, okay, like I'm going to be moving out here. I don't care if we have a new house. Like I got to get on this program here sooner than later. So, but anyways, consequently, the ball has started to roll a bit, and we've been looking a little bit more at different places, and it's going to be like a new to us house, not brand new, because we can't afford it. But there's a house that's for sale that needs to be moved off a farm. So I'm going to go look at that on my way to the farm today. So I'm kind of excited about that. And then we've been invited to a Kentucky Derby party tonight at our friend Jess's house. So this is our rancher friends. They're horse people. There are lots of crazy horse people over there. So maybe if we have time, Mark's busy working, hauling bales and stuff today. And so I don't know if we have time, we'll head over to that. And then I gotta go for a cleaning at the dentist on Tuesday. And then otherwise, just regular work week. So that's it, really. Like a regular, hopefully that's it. But you know what? The world has other plans for me sometimes and throws some curveballs in there. So you never know what I'm going to be dealing with this week. But so far, that's it.
Yeah. Are you planning a hat to wear to the Kentucky Derby party?
I have a hat at the farm that's kind of like a floppy straw hat. That's about the only one that I have that would be sufficient, but it'll be good enough. So anyways, I guess that's gonna wrap it up for us this week.
Thanks, Zena. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We feel beyond blessed that you shared your time with us today. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I was just going to say, I'm just so excited to be at the cool kids table. Thank you.
Well, we feel the same about you. And honestly, you haven't changed a bit. You look exactly the same and sound the same and have the same energy as I always remember. It's so good. So that's so nice to see you. I guess that's going to do it for us. So we just want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in and listening. And if you want to find us on social media, you can find Sister Social Call on Instagram, Stacey's on Facebook and LinkedIn. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those fun places. Thanks so much. Love you, sis.
Love you, sissy.